Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are looking at one of those moments in history where everything, and I mean everything, hung by a single thread.
We're talking about a moment where total catastrophe was averted by just one incredibly desperate, audacious gamble.
Exactly. This is our deep dive into George Washington's 1776 crossing of the Delaware and the Battle of Trenton, the operation that really saved the American cause.
It's often called the Christmas miracle, right? But when you really pull apart the sources, the story changes.
It does.
Our mission here is to show that this wasn't luck. It was, well, it was a perfect storm created by three key factors: sheer desperation, incredible logistics, and on the other side, just astonishing enemy negligence.
Let's set that stage because the stakes were, frankly, existential. You have to understand just how bad December 1776 was.
Oh, it was the bottom of the barrel.
The American Army had just suffered one crushing defeat after another Long Island, Fort Washington. They'd been chased clear across New Jersey, and the sources they paint a picture of total collapse.
The word army is almost too generous at this point.
Right. What you had were a few thousand soldiers. They were demoralized, starving, and literally dressed in rags.
Yeah.
It's hard to overstate the physical suffering. We read accounts of men without shoes leaving trails of blood on the frozen ground.
Just unimaginable.
They were physically and mentally broken.
And beyond just the terrible morale, there was this hard ticking clock working against them. This wasn't just a tough winter. This was basically the last week of the Continental Army's existence.
Precisely. The core of Washington's fighting force was just dissolving. The enlistment terms for a huge number of these soldiers were set to expire on December 31st.
Just a few days away.
A few days, and without a major victory, those men would just pack up and go home. The revolution would effectively be over. Washington knew this, which is why he wrote that incredibly grim line, "The game is pretty nearly up."
So that desperation becomes the fuel.
It's the first key ingredient.
So facing the complete annihilation of his cause, Washington channels that desperation into maybe the highest risk move of his entire career. The plan was audacious, doesn't even cover it: a surprise dawn attack on Christmas night against a secure Hessian garrison in Trenton.
And the password they chose tells you everything you need to know about the stakes: victory or death.
You know, what's remarkable is that the sheer difficulty of the plan became its best camouflage. The Hessians just never expected an attack because the weather made it seem, well, physically impossible.
But the whole thing hinged on logistics, on solving this monumental challenge of getting 2,400 men and all their heavy gear across an ice-choked Delaware River.
And this is where we find the real unsung heroes of the story.
The Rivermen.
Absolutely. The sources really single out Colonel John Glover and his 14th Continental Regiment. These weren't just any soldiers.
No, they were fishermen from Marblehead, Massachusetts.
Men hardened by the North Atlantic. They were the only ones who could manage these specialized boats, the Durham boats, which were these heavy 40 to 60 foot long vessels.
There's ones designed for hauling iron ore.
Yeah, that's right. And maneuvering those things through fast-moving, ice-filled water, it was a skill set that was completely unique to them.
And the weather was just a complete nightmare. This wasn't some quiet, snowy night.
No, this was a full-blown nor'easter. It was brutal. The crossing started at dusk, and they were immediately hit with freezing rain, sleet, and then this blinding snowstorm.
Brigadier General Henry Knox, Washington's artillery chief, he wrote about it, didn't he?
He did. He was trying to get his heavy cannons across, and he wrote that the floating ice in the storm made the labor almost incredible. Every single movement was a battle.
In that brutal environment, it caused a catastrophic delay.
It did, a near-fatal one. The plan was to be across by midnight. That was the deadline, to keep the cover of darkness for the entire march.
But that didn't happen.
Not even close. The last of the 2,400 men, and crucially those 18 heavy cannons, they weren't fully ashore in New Jersey until 2 a.m.
2 in the morning, so they lost hours.
3 hours. They were now facing the very real possibility of fighting in broad daylight, which could have ruined the entire element of surprise.
Can you just imagine Washington on that riverbank? It's 2 a.m., he's freezing, he's soaked, his plan is 3 hours late, but he still has to push forward.
The stress must have been insane. But even then, shivering and soaked, they had one last little psychological boost before they started the march.
And that's the power of the written word.
Exactly. Thomas Paine's new pamphlet, The American Crisis. Many of the troops had read it or heard it read aloud. It gave them that ideological fuel.
These are the times that try men's souls.
That one line, it transformed what could have been a freezing military disaster into a moral fight for survival.
Okay, so we've seen the sheer physical cost of the American desperation. Now let's flip over to the other side of the river and look at the second critical ingredient here, the total complacency of the Hessian command.
Right. And that brings us to Colonel Johann Gottlieb Rall. He's leading 1,500 highly disciplined German mercenaries in Trenton.
A professional soldier, a good one.
A very good one, with a distinguished record. But he suffered from a classic military downfall. A lethal mix of overconfidence and, well, confirmation bias.
He just completely underestimated his opponent.
He saw the Continental Army only through the lens of their recent retreats. He called them country bumpkins. He just couldn't imagine this ragtag force could pull off a coordinated winter attack.
And that disdain, that arrogance, it translated directly into fatal operational negligence.
Absolutely. It led to crucial errors. I mean, despite having a few outposts on the main roads, Rall flat out refused to build permanent defenses. No trenches, no redoubts.
Why not?
He allegedly boasted, "Let them come, we will go at them with the bayonet." He was relying on the reputation of his European discipline. He saw defensive works as beneath him when facing a militia.
And that arrogance leads us to maybe the most mind-boggling detail in the sources.
Yeah.
The unread warning letter.
It's the perfect anecdote. It just perfectly sums up his entire attitude. On Christmas evening, a local Tory farmer who saw the American troop movements managed to get an urgent warning letter directly to Rall's quarters.
And Rall was busy.
Accounts suggest he was impatient, maybe playing cards, maybe drinking after the Christmas celebration. Whatever he was doing, he just stuffed the unopened note into his coat pocket and waved the messenger away.
The single most important piece of intelligence of the entire war. A specific warning about an imminent attack.
Unread in his pocket.
Because he didn't want to be interrupted.
It's the ultimate tragic irony. And, you know, while historians debate how sober the Hessian troops were, it's probably an exaggeration that everyone was drunk. The real failure lies with the commander.
Right.
Rall's complete dismissal of intelligence. That was the opportunity Washington was banking on. Arrogance is a far more dangerous weapon against a general than alcohol.
So the Hessians are secure in their overconfidence. The Americans, meanwhile, are beginning this final, grueling push. We pick up the story at 4 a.m. as they start the 9-mile march to Trenton.
Right. They split into two columns. Major General Nathaniel Greene's wing, with Washington and Knox, took the inland Pennington Road.
And Major General John Sullivan's wing took the River Road.
A crucial division. It meant they could strike the town from two directions at the same time.
9 miles. In the dark. In a driving nor'easter, after hours freezing on a boat. The sources describe men who were just near collapse.
The human will was absolutely at its breaking point. But Washington, he rode among them, embodying that final push. He was relying on pure willpower, urging his nearly fainting men onward with that famous line, press on, boys."
And at 8 a.m. on December 26th, that pressure pays off. They converge on the town and achieve complete surprise.
The first alarm comes from the Pennington Road outpost. The Hessian officer in charge, Lieutenant von Wiederholt, he spots the Americans through the sleet and just cries out, "Der Feind, der Feind!"
The enemy. Yeah, no.
But it was too late. By the time the Hessians scrambled out of their barracks, Washington had sealed the town. And this is where Henry Knox and his artillery proved indispensable.
It was a brilliant tactical placement.
Knox positioned his 18 cannons on the high ground, right at the intersection of King and Queen Streets. This was critical. It instantly gave them control of the two main roads.
They used the town's own layout against the defenders.
Exactly. As the Hessians tried to form up in their neat European ranks, the Americans just started raking the streets with grape shot.
And for anyone listening who might not be sure, what exactly is grape shot?
Right. It's basically a deadly, large-scale shotgun shell. Instead of one solid cannonball, the cannon fires a cluster of small iron balls.
In a tight urban space like a street.
It's devastating. It turned those main roads into inescapable kill zones.
And the very thing that made the Hessians so good, their discipline, their training for open field formations, it became their biggest weakness in this chaotic ambush.
It was totally obsolete in this environment. Colonel Rall, finally roused, he fought bravely to rally his men, but he was quickly struck by 2 musket balls and fell.
And there's a fascinating detail in there about a future U.S. president.
A young Lieutenant James Monroe, yes. He was wounded in the shoulder, commanding an advanced unit, a great little historical connection.
Once Rall fell, the battle was pretty much over.
It was. Sullivan's wing had cut off the main escape route across the Assunpink Creek Bridge, forcing the rest of them, nearly 900 men, to surrender in a frozen peach orchard. The whole thing lasted barely an hour.
The numbers that come out of this battle are just staggering. They show the incredible imbalance of the execution.
It's a ridiculously disproportionate victory. Hessian losses were 22 killed, 83 wounded, and about 900 captured. A massive blow to the British cause.
And on the American side,
Only 5 wounded, including Monroe, and incredibly, only 2 men died. And they didn't die from enemy fire. They died from exposure during that brutal march.
that fact alone just underscores that the weather was a greater enemy to them than the Hessians were.
It really does.
And beyond the body count, the spoils they captured were a revolution in themselves. 6 much-needed cannons, muskets, swords.
Crucial supplies. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this was the moment the American Revolution became a phoenix rising from the ashes of 1776.
It had an immediate effect.
It did 4 essential things. First, morale. A massive psychological boost. It proved a beaten army could defeat a professional European force.
And second, it stopped that ticking clock. It fixed the dissolving army problem.
Yes, the victory convinced veterans whose terms were up in 5 days to re-enlist, often for a $10 bounty, that Washington suddenly had the political capital to promise,
The Continental Army had fought its way into the new year.
ensuring there would be a war to fight in 1777.
And finally, it completely solidified Washington's legacy. He was no longer just the general of masterful retreats.
No, he was now cemented as this ingenious, determined leader willing to take a huge gamble, execute it with precision, and win. This battle didn't secure independence, but it absolutely secured the survival of the cause.
So this Christmas miracle was clearly less about luck and more about this convergence of Washington's strategic brilliance, the sheer grit of those Marblehead fishermen.
And the disastrous, arrogant complacency of Colonel Rahl.
It required all 3 things to align perfectly.
It did.
So what does this all mean for you today? The sources really lay bare the difference between Washington's unrelenting resolve that press on, boys, and Rahl's decision to just stuff that vital warning letter into his pocket.
Rahl's fatal error wasn't just drinking or celebrating. It was letting his past success breed total arrogance. He fell victim to confirmation bias. He only heard what he expected to hear, that the Americans were cowards.
He dismissed the disruption because it contradicted his worldview.
Exactly.
And you have to consider how often great success, whether it's in war or business or just a tough personal project, is determined not by who has the most resources, but by whose internal resolve lasts just 1 hour longer than their adversary's complacency.
And whose willingness to listen to an uncomfortable truth trumps their own ingrained certainty.
It's a powerful lesson in leadership. Sometimes the greatest obstacle to your own success is how certain you are that you're already right. Something to think about the next time you feel like the game is nearly up.
A powerful contrast to draw from the historical record.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the most desperate gamble of the American Revolution. We hope you feel a little more informed.
Until next time.
Take care.